My name is Everly Callahan. I am 32 years old. And 2 months ago, on Thanksgiving night, in front of nearly 30 relatives, my parents handed my older sister an envelope worth $11,000 and handed me a folded dollar bill and a scratched lottery ticket with a smirk. This is about what fits your situation, Everly, my mother said, loud enough for the whole dining room to hear. People laughed. Nobody in that room knew that crumpled little ticket was about to change everything. But this isn't really a story about money. It's a story about finally being seen. Before I take you back to that night, let me just say if a story like this has ever felt familiar to you. If you've ever sat at a table where you were invisible, I'd love to hear about it when we get to the end. I read every comment. Now, back to Thanksgiving. The Callahan family dinner was always a performance. Not the warm, cozy kind you see in movies, more like a stage where everyone had an assigned role. And mine was the quiet one who set the table and asked for nothing. I arrived at my parents' house in Dayton, Ohio, at 5 o'clock sharp, carrying a dish of roasted vegetables from my own garden and a bouquet of dahlias I had grown myself, deep red, the color of late autumn. I had nursed those flowers for months. My mother opened the door before I even knocked. "Oh, still growing weeds. Issei," she said, glancing at the bouquet and then past me. Behind her, my sister Brooke had just pulled into the driveway, and my mother's whole face lit up like a switch had been flipped. "There's my girl," she called out, rushing past me to hug Brooke like she hadn't seen her in a year. Even though it had been 2 weeks, I want to pause here for a second. If you've ever felt that specific sting, watching someone else get the version of your parent that you never got, you already know exactly how that doorway felt. Keep that feeling in mind, because it matters later. Inside, my father sat in his recliner talking business with my brother-in-law, Trevor. He barely glanced up. "Good. You're here. Table needs setting." That was my greeting. Trevor held court in the living room, describing his newest investment opportunity, and everyone leaned in like he was some kind of financial genius. I never trusted him. I had no proof. Only a feeling in my gut that never went away when he was in the room. Later, while I folded napkins alone, my mother introduced me to a cousin visiting from out of town. "This is Everly, my younger daughter. She does something with gardens. I think. I design public green spaces for a living parks. Courtyards, corporate campuses, landscaping, gardens. Same thing, dear," she said, waving her hand, and walked away before I could correct her. I kept folding napkins. Some fights aren't worth having. Not yet. Anyway, that's when I overheard them. The kitchen door was cracked, and their voices drifted out. My mother, my father, "Mi sister, the cruise leaves the 15th. My mother was saying, 2 weeks in the Caribbean. The whole family, you. Trevor. The kids. Us. Even Grandma, if she's up to it." "What about Everly?" Brooke asked, not out of concern, just checking a box. Silence. Then my father cleared his throat. "She's busy with work. Besides, a trip like that is expensive. We don't want to burden her." Nobody had asked if I was busy. Nobody had asked if I wanted to go. They had simply decided, without me, that I wasn't worth including. I pushed the door open. "I'm not invited." My mother's smile went tight. "Sweetheart, this trip is really about celebrating Trevor's promotion. It's not about you. We just didn't think you'd be interested," Brooke added. Sweet as poison. "You're always so independent." Independent. That was the word they used whenever they meant time's outsider. I want to be honest with you. I've thought a lot about that word since then. Families have a way of turning your strength into their excuse. If that sounds familiar, you are not imagining it. Behind me, I heard the slow shuffle of a walker. My grandmother, June, stood in the hallway watching, her eyes sharp despite her frailty. She reached out and squeezed my hand. Said nothing, but I felt seen for the first time all evening. My mother swooped in immediately. "Mom, you shouldn't be standing so long. Everly, help your grandmother sit." As my mother steered her away, Grandma June looked back at me and mouthed 3 words times call Raymond Cole. I had no idea who that was. I would find out very soon. Dinner began, and my father stood, tapping his wine glass. Family is everything, he announced, to nodding approval from 30 relatives. I remember counting them, 30 witnesses to what came next. This year, your mother and I wanted to do something special for our girls. He gestured to Brooke, who floated forward in her heels. Already glowing, my mother handed her a thick envelope. A 2-week Caribbean cruise. First class. The room erupted in applause. Brooke, cried the pretty kind of tears. The kind that photograph well. $11,000. I had seen the receipt on my mother's laptop weeks earlier. Then my mother turned to me. The room quieted. Everly. Honey. Come here. She pressed a thin envelope into my hands. Inside was a single scratched lottery ticket and a folded dollar bill. This is what suits your situation, dear. Who knows, maybe luck will find you. Someone snickered. Then Trevor, leaning back with a smirk. Luck's a long shot when you don't have much else going for you. Laughter rippled around the table. I smiled. Thank you. Mom, I'm sure this is exactly what I deserve. Nobody heard the edge in my voice. But I did. If you're watching this and you've ever smiled through a moment like that, swallowed the humiliation, because making a scene would only prove them right, I understand you completely. That smile cost something. I paid it that night, and I never forgot the price. Then something happened that no one expected. My grandmother stood, trembling with the effort. Walter, Diane, this is not right. You cannot treat Everly this way. Not in front of everyone. The room went dead, silent, heavier this time. Uncomfortable. My mother rushed to her side. You're tired. Mom, let's get you to lie down, she said, already steering her away before she could say another word. Grandma June looked back at me over her shoulder and glanced, just for a second, at the old leather handbag she never let anyone touch. The door closed. The room exhaled. Conversation resumed like nothing had happened. But my Aunt Carol was watching me from across the table. Pâle. Like she wanted to say something and thought better of it. Later that night, cleaning up alone as usual, I walked into my father's study to collect dishes and found papers scattered across his desk, overdue bills, a collection notice, and underneath it all, a loan agreement. My father had borrowed $140,000 from Trevor at a predatory interest rate. Attached to it was a second document, my grandmother's house, listed as collateral, with her signature shaky, uneven, dated from 6 months earlier, the same month she had been hospitalized after a fall and heavily medicated. My hands were shaking as I photographed every page. I didn't have a plan yet. I just understood, finally, why I had gotten a dollar bill and a scratch ticket while my sister got a cruise. It was never about love. It was about keeping me small enough not to ask questions. I want to say something here. Just one narrator to another. Sometimes the moment you realize the truth about your family isn't loud. It's quiet. And it's lonely. And it happens over a stack of papers nobody meant for you to see. If that's ever happened to you, you're not alone in that silence. 1 week later, I called my Aunt Carol. Is Dad in serious debt? I asked her outright. Long silence. Don't talk about this on the phone. She finally said, meet me Saturday. And Everly, don't trust anything Trevor tells you. He's not who he pretends to be. That same week, sitting in my apartment, I remembered the lottery ticket still crumpled on my counter. On a whim, I scanned the numbers into the state lottery app. The first number matched. My chest tightened. The second matched. By the 6th number, I wasn't breathing. I checked the official website twice. $98 million. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sat perfectly still for what felt like an hour. Then I remembered my grandmother's words. And I called Raymond Cole. Your grandmother said you might reach out. He told me warmly. There are some matters we need to discuss about her estate. About her house. They existed long before any lottery ticket. He paused when I told him about the jackpot. Then we definitely need to talk. And Callahan, don't mention this call to anyone in your family yet. His office smelled like old books and quiet integrity. He slid a folder across the desk. 10 years earlier, my grandmother had secretly set up a trust in my name, $300,000 afraid. He explained gently that my mother would find a way to take it if she knew. You were the only one who never asked her for anything. He said, that's how she knew. Then came the harder part. The deed to her house had been signed over as collateral the day after her hospitalization, while she was barely coherent from pain medication. If my father defaulted on the loan, Trevor would legally own her home. What can I do, I asked. With your resources now, you have options. We can challenge the deed. We can pay off the debt. We can protect her. I looked at the paperwork, $300,000 from a grandmother who believed in me before anyone else did. $98 million from a ticket handed to me as a joke. Let's protect her, I said. At the coffee shop, my Aunt Carol told me the rest. Trevor wasn't really a financial consultant. He lent money to desperate people at rates that bordered on illegal. And months earlier, at a family party, she had accidentally seen messages on his unlocked phone between him and a woman named Renee. Explicit. Damning. Once the house deal closes, I'm out. Brooke served her purpose. Divorce papers are already drafted. My sister wasn't my enemy. She was another person my family had quietly sacrificed and never told. I visited my grandmother at the care facility a few days later. Small, sunlit room. A garden outside her window that badly needed a professional touch. Mine. As it turned out, you were the one who never expected anything from me, she said, gripping my hand. That's how I knew you were the one who deserved it. When I told her about the jackpot, she actually laughed, a soft, papery sound. Karma, she whispered. I always believed in it. Then she made me promise one thing. Don't become like them. Don't let the money change who you are. I promised. It was the easiest promise I've ever made, and the hardest one to keep. 2 weeks later, the family gathered again for a going-away dinner before the cruise. I was there not as a guest, as help. Arrange the centerpieces, direct the caterer, make sure the nurse knew they'd be gone 2 weeks. I smiled and did it all. Because nobody in that room knew about the lawyers working on my behalf, or the LLC quietly being formed to protect my winnings, or that within a month I would be worth more than every person at that table combined. Too bad you can't come with us, Brooke said at one point, not sounding sorry at all. But someone has to water Mom's orchids. I don't mind, I said. I hope you all have an amazing trip. Trevor leaned in with that same cold smile. Buy any more lottery tickets? Everly, maybe you'll win $5 next time. The table laughed. I let them. 12 days later, they boarded the ship. I stayed behind to finalize paperwork with Raymond. On day 3 of the cruise, I posted a single photo, just me, standing in front of my grandmother's house, with a caption that simply read, Times renovation starting soon. I knew my father checked social media obsessively. That same day, local news reported that a Powerball jackpot worth $98 million had been claimed anonymously, purchased at a convenience store 3 miles from my parents' house. I didn't leak that detail. The universe just has a sense of humor sometimes. By that evening, my phone had over 70 missed calls. I let every single one go to voicemail. I want to be honest with you about something. It did not feel good to listen to those messages later. It felt like watching people scramble for something they never valued until it might belong to someone else. If you've ever had people suddenly rediscover your worth right after you stopped needing their approval, you already know that particular kind of hollow feeling. The next night, I called a family video meeting. Every one of them appeared on screen from the ship's lounge. Tropical sunset behind them, faces arranged into careful warmth. We miss you so much. Honey, my mother said. Have you done something different with your hair? Brooke asked, a compliment she had never once given me before. I won the lottery, I said plainly. $98 million. The reactions came fast: shock, excitement, congratulations. Trevor recovered first. That's life-changing money. Everly, You're going to need real financial guidance. Someone in the family who understands this stuff. I told him I already had a lawyer. Then I shared my screen. The loan agreement. My father's face went pale. The deed to my grandmother's house. Signed while she was barely conscious. My mother's mouth opened with no sound coming out. And finally, the messages between Trevor and Renee. Brooke's face crumbled in real time. Once the house deal closes, I'm out. I read aloud. She served her purpose. Divorce papers are already drafted. Trevor stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. Those are fabricated. He snapped. Then grabbed his phone and walked off camera without another word. Here's what happens now, I said quietly. I'm paying off the loan and clearing the lien on Grandma's house. It goes back to her name. Fully protected. None of you will have any legal claim to it. Ever. My father pleaded that we were family. Family doesn't steal from an elderly woman. I told him, and ended the call before anyone could respond. I sat alone in the silence afterward. And I want to tell you honestly, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow and tired. Like I had just finished something I'd been carrying for years without realizing how heavy it was. A knock came at my door. My Aunt Carol, holding me before I could even say hello. You didn't destroy your family. Everly, she told me. They destroyed themselves years ago. You just turned the lights on. Within days, the story took on a life of its own. Renee, Trevor's mistress, posted her own account online receipts, messages, a tearful statement calling him out publicly. Brooke filed for divorce before the ship even docked. 2 of Trevor's former clients came forward to the state attorney general's office over his lending practices. My father declared bankruptcy the following month. The auto shop he had run for 30 years was liquidated to cover debts that had been piling up long before I ever found those papers. I didn't lift a finger for any of it. The dominoes fell entirely on their own weight. My grandmother's response, when I told her, was simple. Karma, she said again, smiling in her own living room for the first time in over a year. I told you I believed in it. My mother called 3 weeks later, her voice hoarse from crying. You've ruined us, she said. No, Ello. No, how are you? I told the truth. I answered calmly. You could have helped us instead, she snapped. I could have covered up fraud. I told her. I could have let you keep an elderly woman's house. I won't do that. So is Grandma family. Mom. So is Grandma. She hung up. And it was 6 months before we spoke again. A letter arrived from Brooke a few months later, handwritten on pale blue paper. She admitted she had always sensed something was wrong with Trevor and chosen not to look too closely. She admitted she had watched our parents treat me unfairly for years and told herself it wasn't her responsibility to say anything. I see you now, she wrote. I see what I missed for 30 years. I'm so sorry. I didn't write back right away, but something in me loosened. Just slightly. Reading those words, my grandmother came home that spring. I was there when the transport van pulled into the driveway where I'd learned to ride a bike as a kid. Her garden was overgrown and neglected, but still standing. And when she saw it, she smiled. It needs work, she said. That's my specialty. I told her. I'm going to fix it. A year later, I barely recognize my own life. My landscape design firm has grown 2 new hires. A waiting list of clients. 3 public gardens completed this year alone. Most of the jackpot sits in careful, diversified investments I rarely touch. I bought a modest house near my grandmother's. Nothing extravagant. Just enough room for me and Biscuit. A rescue dog who loves digging up my test gardens more than I'd like to admit. The real legacy is the foundation I started in my grandmother's name scholarships for young women pursuing creative careers their families never took seriously. Every acceptance letter feels like a small act of defiance against every person who ever told a young woman her dreams weren't practical enough to matter. My parents live modestly now, working steady jobs. Stable, but far from the life they once imagined. We speak occasionally a birthday text. A short civil call that sometimes ends in old resentment creeping back in. My mother has never apologized. Not once. I've made peace with that. Forgiveness isn't something you owe to people who hurt you. It's something you give yourself. When and if you're ready. And only on your own timeline. Brooke is different. We've had coffee together more times than I can count now. It's slow. Sometimes awkward, but real. I didn't realize how messed up our family was until I got out of it. She told me recently. I thought it was normal. I thought I was lucky. We're not close. Not the way sisters in movies are. But we're trying. And trying counts for something. People always ask me the same question: did winning $98 million change your life? The honest answer is not really. Not in the way they mean. What changed my life was one single moment at a dinner table, realizing I had spent 32 years waiting for people to see my worth. And they simply never would. Not because I lacked value. Because they had never once bothered to look. That lottery ticket wasn't really a gift because of what it was worth. It was a gift because of what it revealed. And that revelation was worth more than any jackpot ever could be. If you're watching this and you recognize even a small piece of yourself in this story, a family that overlooks you, a table where you're only invited to serve, I want you to know something simple. You don't need $98 million to set yourself free. You don't need luck. And you don't need anyone's permission. You need one decision to stop letting other people define what you're worth. Set your boundaries. Walk away from tables where you're only welcome to serve everyone else. Build your own table if you have to. I'm Everly Callahan. I'm a landscape architect, a dog mom, a granddaughter, and most importantly, a woman who finally chose herself. That, to me, is the real jackpot. If any part of this story felt familiar to you, I'd genuinely love to hear your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you've ever felt invisible at your own family's table, I hope you know you're not invisible here.